All right, I think we are in here. Yes, we are. Hello, everybody. We are 5 minutes early on purpose because when social media works, we love that it works. So it allows us an opportunity to things going. This gives us also an opportunity for you to share. Come on and share and let someone know that we're on. You do not want to miss this conversation. So we're looking for you to share. Please put this on your page. Text someone, let them know. You may be hibernating in the house. You may be kind of quarantined in the house, but you're able to connect with real women right now. I'm going to do the same. I'm going to share a couple of places since we have a couple of minutes before we get started. Would love for you to do the same. And don't just share, say hi to us. Let us know that you're here. We like to make this an interactive experience. So it's not just us talking to you, but we get an opportunity to hear from you in the chat. So we would love for you to say hello to us. You can even tell us what you're up to uh, during this time of hibernation. There is nothing wrong with hibernating. So I'm hoping that you all don't mind sharing what you're up to. I think I've gotten all of my places that I need to share. And we've still got a couple of minutes. So I'm going to look. Hi there, Angela. Come on in. Anybody else want to say hello? We would absolutely love to hear from you. Give it a couple more minutes before we officially get started. I think I've done all of my shares. All right. Oh, hey, Net. Thank you for being on. Appreciate you. Okay. Well, I want to make sure I go ahead and get started, at least with our announcements, because there's so much for me to share with you. My name is Trenace Richardson, and I'm the founder of Real Women, and we exist to create safe spaces for women to do personal development work on themselves. We have been formally doing this work since 2013, and in that time and space, we have developed physical sister circles in the DC, Maryland, Northern Virginia, and Hampton Roads, Virginia areas. And in those areas, each of our sister circles meets on a monthly basis. And we literally sit in a circle and talk about issues that women deal with. We are not physically meeting during the month of March because there are typically more than us meeting, and we want to honor all of the things that have been going on and the guidelines and restrictions that have been set up by the state of Maryland and all the other states following suit. So we have set up for this month 2 virtual sister circles. If you go to any of our social media pages, our public Real Women Rock page on Facebook, or realwomenrock.org. You can see in the title that that's our website. You can go any of those places and you'll see that we have 2 virtual sister circles. So in the comfort of your own home, this Saturday, we'll be talking about your money so you can get your money straight. And in these days and times, you really want to make sure you do that. And then next Saturday, we're going to be talking about girl power. And in this season where we may feel so helpless and powerless and out of control, we want to talk about you gaining your power back or just tapping into the power you already have. And so these are your opportunities to connect with other women in a meaningful way. There's a Zoom link so that you're able to show your face if you like. There's a phone number if you rather not. We really just want to connect with you during this time. And this is our time to really just give back and contribute, because first-time guests are always welcome to come free of charge. But for this month, anyone can join us free of charge for these 2 sister circles. We also have a Real Women all access community where we hold a monthly virtual sister circle that is closed to just our membership. There are some membership discounts that are available, and we just connect with each other on a deeper way. And so if you're interested in any of that information, all of it is at realwomenrock.org. Okay, those are our announcements, and they've taken us to 8 o'clock. So if you did not hear our announcements and you want to jump in, just make sure that you replay the beginning of this so that you can hear. And then all of the information that I shared with you is at realwomenrock.org. I am so excited about this conversation we are going to have because I know several women who literally have been in the shoes that Erica is going to share with us. She has experienced, and some of them are in the throes of it right now and would enjoy being able to connect with someone who has a like experience. And so if you know anyone, hey y'all, if you know anyone who needs to be on right now, please have them join us now or share the replay with them once we posted it. We would love for them to connect with us. Erica is not local. Right now it is 9 a.m. where she is and it's 8 p.m. where we are. I am so glad that she was able to join us from where she is, and I'm going to let her tell you all about that. But I had the blessing of connecting with her because when she was in the Hampton Roads area in Virginia, we were able to connect through Real Women, and she was a consistent member and supporter of Real Women, and we get to know each other, all of us in the community, at whatever level and depth we kind of engage and attend and participate. And so we've gotten to know each other to the point where we stayed in contact. And when I saw that she had published a book, I was like, let's go. It's time to put you on blast. So I would love for you, Erica, to get the conversation started. Remember, you guys, I'm going to be asking you some questions, but I would love for you first, Erica, to tell us who you are, and just a little bit about yourself, both maybe professionally and personally.
Great. An honor and such a blessing to be part of this discussion. First and foremost, Real Women just has a very special place in my heart and will always have a special place, because honestly, if it wasn't for the work that was being done by this organization, I really don't think that I would have reached the level that I reached to be able to walk in my authenticity, share my story, and just recognize that I'm not the only one that's struggling. So as Dr. Richardson introduced, my name is Erica Mitchell. I am originally from Newport News, Virginia. So the Hampton Roads area is my hometown. And I currently live in Seoul, South Korea. So I'm here with my husband, who is with the U.S. Navy. We got stationed in Korea about almost 2 years ago, and we're running short on our time here. So there's only a few months left before we return back to the States. But for the time being, I'm in Korea, enjoying it, and it's been a life-changing opportunity. And I'm sure I'll talk more about that later. But before I got to Korea, I was working professionally in the field of, I think that field is just so unique and special because I was able to do it in the professional realm with, the company I was working for, but those attributes of process improvement translate very seamlessly to my personal life. And professional development is something I've always been very passionate, or personal development is something I've always been very passionate about. So the things that I learned on my job, absolutely able to apply in my personal life, and again, contributing to how I got to where I am today with having published my first book. So the big thing about me, or that has been about me for the past several years, about 10 years, has been wrestling with infertility. And I, mentally, that other people are dealing with it and struggling with it, but when you're walking through it, you feel very alone. And so for 10 years, I just kind of managed that frustration, managed those challenges by myself with my husband, obviously, but really didn't talk to anyone about frustrations and the challenges that I was having until very, very recently. So because I held on to those challenges, I think I started to incorporate that into my identity. And I think only recently have I really started to say, you know, infertility is something that I've wrestled with, but it's not me. There's so much more to me, so much more to my story than just this one, you know, big challenge, but there's more to me than that. And so that's how I kind of want to start off this discussion. Of anybody that's struggling with infertility, recognize that your fertility story is not the sum total of who you are as a person. Because if someone had told me that at the beginning of, you know, that 10-year journey, maybe my perspective would have shifted so much earlier than it did. And only now am I walking in that truth that, you know, I am so much more than that part of my story. So I don't know if that's a big enough introduction or not, but
oh my gosh, it was perfect. And thank you for that. You have brought up so much. I thank you for sharing you right off the bat so openly. And I want you all to know, because I'm about to ask you all a question. But we under the umbrellas of travel, just that whole umbrella of being able to travel. You and I have talked about that, and I want to lift up the idea of travel and the fact that it's possible, even if you don't, you know, have millions of dollars in the bank, that it is possible, even when you don't feel like you have disposable income. So we're going to talk about that. You've written a book, and just that whole process of getting to the place where you tell your story publicly, and you're willing to have people read about your life and the lessons learned, and then where you just ended this whole journey of infertility, and how you've been able to not just survive, but thrive in spite of it, because you know that this is not the sum total of who you are. I absolutely love all that I know we're gonna have to do a part 2, Erica, because of just how much there is to cover. So before I ask you a question, I really want to check in with those of you who are listening and engaged right now, whether you're listening now live or on the recording. If you wouldn't mind putting in the chat if you or someone you know has dealt with literal infertility, even if it was just waiting for years and not, you know, trying to figure out what was wrong, or whether there was something wrong, or whether you have been diagnosed with something, you or your spouse or your mate has been diagnosed with something that would cause you to feel like you could not reproduce. And so I want you to share that literal piece, right? But even if you have not had that literal issue or know someone who has had that literal issue, I also want you to begin reflecting on and thinking about places in your life that you did not think were fruitful or productive, and you wanted them to be. And so it may be relationships, it may be, and I know the sensitivity level right now for me is really high, Erica, which is why you're here to help me with this, because I don't believe we can describe compares to the literal experiences that you've had, because you just don't understand it unless you've been through it. And so I'm not making a comparison. I'm literally just trying to make sure everyone is included in the conversation, because trust me, if you've had the literal issue, Erica's going to speak to you and let you know through what she shares and her book, kind of how she has overcome it. I'm hoping you all can hear me. And then if it has been a figurative thing for you, we will speak to that as well. So as we're getting some things in the chat, I'll start start where you are, and then we'll go back to some other things. Could you talk about that journey in a little bit more detail? How long have you been married? How long have you dealt with the infertility issue? And how did you begin to manage it and deal with it internally, and be willing to help others?
Yeah, so I received the underlying diagnosis that contributed to infertility 15 years ago. So this has been something that's been ongoing for almost half of my life, really. But my husband and I have been married. Last year was 10 years. So
Mhm.
between, 10 years of actively trying to conceive with my husband, but 15 years of knowing that there would be an issue. Um, that's how I entered the marriage. And that's, a big chunk of that time was just knowing that there was going to be a problem. So with infertility, the medical community wants you to kind of try naturally for a little bit of time before pursuing advanced steps. So we did that. We went through just natural attempts, kind of low technology attempts, all the way up through very expensive IVF treatments.
Mm.
And even through all of that, we had a lot of discussions. We prayed about it. We took a breath and decided that we would try to pursue adoption because that's also another path to parenthood. So we became foster parents with the goal of adopting. That was not successful as we had hoped. And then we also looked into different uh, opportunities to adopt because adoption comes in many different forms. So we had a young lady that was expecting who had decided to pursue an adoption plan, but once the child was born, she decided to parent. And again, I have utmost respect and
So,
understanding for her changing her mind, but it's a loss nonetheless. So, I mean, what you said about, there's the literal infertility, but then there's also kind of figurative infertility. I
mhm,
wholeheartedly agree with that. I don't find any sensitivity to it because at the end of the day, at the root of it all is loss, just dreams that and visions and expectations that don't come to fruition that really do translate beyond just the womb and the journey to parenthood.
mhm,
So, one of the things that I recognize in writing my book, which is titled No Less Blessed, as I started to share that book with all sorts of people in my, test reader phase, I made sure to get people who were different races, men and women, people who had dealt with fertility, people who had not dealt with infertility, to just get a broad response of how were people going to be receptive to this book. And it was just so amazing and so encouraging to discover that people who had not specifically dealt with infertility were still touched by the message because it did speak to a part of their life, because we all know what it's like to have this vision and have this hope and have this expectation that doesn't pan out the way that we desired. And we know what it feels like when we have something that so-called failed and then we internalize that and see ourselves as a failure. And
mm,
that's what I had struggled with for so long with infertility, and why I'm very careful about words that I use to describe my story. Is I used to say everything had failed, everything that my husband and I had tried it failed, but I
mm,
don't say that anymore. I say what we tried to do was unsuccessful, because I realized every time I use that word failed,
mm,
I would internalize it myself to see myself as a failure. So
mm,
there was so much power in reclaiming my story and using the words to describe my story, because I don't want to see myself as a failure anymore. And that's just a decision that my husband and I decided. Like I said, last year was our 10-year anniversary. We said these next 10 years are not going to be the same as the past 10 years. We're not going to walk in failure and discouragement and despair
mm,
anymore. We're going to walk in a place of confidence.
mhm,
And that really started with me kind of addressing those fears and misunderstandings about what I had about myself, about my faith, and about just who I am as a person. And that's why I'm just so excited about this book, No Less Blessed, because it came from me literally having to tell myself, Erica, you are not less blessed than people who have received that thing that you've been praying for.
Mm, mm, mm. Can I
It could be
interject?
parenthood, it could be just kind of anything. So yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, you are fine. You are fine. I just had to jump in because what you're sharing is so helpful. What you're sharing is resonating with some folks who have had common experience. And I've put the website in the chat for anyone who's looking for the book and to find Erica and information about her. But I needed to say thank you for, because like I said, I'm just very sensitive to it. So you kind of gave me permission to delve into this a little bit more, because I want to make sure that I'm sensitive to someone who has been in that predicament. I love that you are extending the commonality to all of us who have experienced either loss or failure, because we are all so hard on ourselves, Erica. We are so, every one of us is our own worst critic, more often than not. If we're not, we're probably narcissists, because we more often than not, we are our own worst critic. And so when everything does not pan out exactly the way we imagine it to, in our lives, in our work, in our relationships, then we say it must be something about me. I must be lacking something. And to be able to say what you just said, that I had to look at all of my experiences from a different lens, a different perspective, and stop seeing them as failures and looking at them as experiences to learn from. I think that is just a wonderful perspective and literally a how-to. Like, some of us may think, I don't know. That's easy to say. I don't know how to do that. So let's put some practicality behind it. Have you done any counseling that would help you move further and farther along? You mentioned community like Real Women. If you could just talk about some of the things that actually help you change your perspective.
Yeah. So Real Women for sure. And one thing I even mentioned in the book is, my husband is my best friend, but I recognize that God blessed me with more resources than just my husband. And it's not fair to try to expect one person to be the go-to to help me through something that's so big and something that affected him too.
Mm.
So I think that's a really important message, specifically for people dealing with infertility is yes, rely on your spouse, but also recognize that your spouse can't be the end all be all for helping you get to a healthy place, because they have their own journey as well. So aside from my husband and Real Women, I also attended peer support groups through Resolve Infertility Organization. They have peer support groups all throughout the country. In the Hampton Roads area, I attended one in Virginia Beach. That was really good, and still very connected to one of the ladies there. There's also one on the peninsula that's run in Williamsburg by a good friend of mine as well. So there are at least two that I know of in the Hampton Roads area. And if you're not in the Hampton Roads area, you can go to the Resolve website and they will get you connected to a local group in your area. Again, with work, being able to use process improvement tools, I think one of the most important tools that I used was, what they call a root cause analysis. So you keep asking yourself why.
Mm.
So when you get to this place where you're starting to deal with the problem, asking yourself why, and I think they call it the 5 whys. If you ask yourself why 5 times, then you can get to kind of the root of the problem and start doing the work at the root level. Because when you start trying to address it at kind of the superficial level, you don't really you don't really make the progress that you were hoping to make. And
Mm.
so that really was the beginning of me starting to write this book, is asking myself, what's the real problem behind my struggle with infertility? And when I got
Mm.
to the root of it, I recognized that the real problem was, and I hope I don't step on any toes, but this is my truth.
Yeah, it's
but the
yours.
real but the real problem was the relationship between faith and infertility. And
Mm.
the message that you hear in faith-based community, and I'm a Christian, but the message that you hear is, the longer you pray, the more you pray, it's going to happen. And I
Ooh,
recognize the
child,
power.
I'm gonna let you finish. I promise I'm gonna let you finish. I promise I'm gonna let you finish. I promise.
Okay.
But you are touching something. We are in a season right now where you are touching something that some of us, and I'm not, this is your truth as you're expressing it, and I am just happen to amen your truth, but it doesn't have to be everybody's truth. But I want to lift it up, because the most popular opinion is, the harder you believe, the more you pray, that whatsoever you say can happen. And so I just want to lift that thought process up so that you can speak to it. So you can go ahead. Thank you.
Right. And like I said, I believe absolutely in the power of prayer. But as someone walking through the journey, I have seen everybody. I've seen the people who have received the miracle, and I've seen the people who have reached the end of their journey without the miracle. And the people who don't get that miracle take it so hard, because they say, God didn't love me. I didn't pray hard enough. And they just internalize everything. And in the infertility community, when I was struggling, I'm a big reader. So I was looking for books and resources that would be inclusive of everybody. But there was just this kind of one singular message of, keep praying, keep waiting, and it will happen. And
Mm,
my hesitation and frustration was, well, what about these sisters that it never happened for?
right.
Why don't they matter? Why doesn't their story matter? I'm grateful, and I celebrate the people for whom it did happen. But there
Yeah.
has to be a message out there that's inclusive of whether the miracle comes or whether you reach the end of your journey, because that disconnect between me really believing that God is good, but if he's so good, how come there's not a message that speaks to this population? And so that was my root cause of, like, I've got to find a message for me. And when I found it for me, I recognized that this message is not just for me. It's for people, and there are like friends that are as close as a sister to me, that they were the first ones to read this book before it even is released to the public, because I knew how important it was. So um, the big, I guess you call the usual suspects that are cited in infertility Christian literature tend to be the literal infertility stories: Hannah, Sarah, Elizabeth.
Mhm.
And because all of those stories ended with this miracle child, then a lot of that literature reinforces that idea. So what I've done in my book is not specifically relying on the literal Christian narratives of fertility, but my book looks at the experience of the Israelites going through the wilderness journey, because that experience of infertility and navigating the experience, to me, was the harder part. And I needed somebody that could speak to and be very vulnerable and very transparent about the difficulty in navigating
Mm,
that experience, more so than just focusing on the outcome. So
mm,
that's what No Less Blessed does. It focuses on navigating those really tough questions, those really tough emotions that you're managing and wrestling with as you're dealing with infertility, and recognizing that no matter how your still with you, that you are as blessed as anyone else, and that there's no need to, um, down yourself or just internalize those failures and seeing yourself as a failure. So that way you can continue to walk in confidence and walk in in who God made you to be, whether your womb is fruitful or whether you are fruitful in other areas of your life.
This is so good. Thank you for that. And I love the perspective of your book because you're right. We often hear from folks who are on the other side of it when we talk about this specific issue of infertility. They're encouraging us after they've had a child, or after IVF has worked, or after they've adopted, and it's like a you can too, and so
Right.
what happens when you're either still in the midst of that wilderness, and it's been years and years, and you don't see any, or what is even the purpose of my life? What should be the focus of my life if that is not a part of my story? If that ends up not being a part of my story, how do I navigate what my life actually is than what I thought it was going to be? And I
Right.
think that is just an amazing perspective to take, because so many find themselves there and ashamed or muted, and muffled, and not talking about it, because the louder voices are the ones that are talking about, coming out on the other side of it with, the gift or the fruit or the whatever. And so thank you for doing that. Thank you for taking the brave step to share your story in the midst of your surviving and thriving the way that you have. I put in the chat, and we've gotten some comments. You're going to want to go back at some point, Erica, because at least a couple of people have said that they're familiar with this journey, either personally or know someone who has. And I'm asking you all, as I'm, transitioning with Erica to another question, but I'm asking you all, how have you all dealt with and overcome your failures, your challenges, your obstacles, the things that you felt like, or even feel like right now? How are you managing feeling like you are not able to access what you have envisioned for yourself? How do you manage? How do you deal with that? Because we would love to be able to learn from each other. And we would love for you to go to nolessblessed.com to get this book, because as you just heard, the story is not once, everybody makes it to the other side. It's the journey itself, and what lessons do you learn while you're on that journey. And so you've shared yours with us, Erica. I guess I want to make sure people understand and know, sort of, I'll just ask you, how did you decide? I read a little bit of your story about staying up one night or one morning, but how did you decide, I'm going to put it in a book? Like, I'm going to share it with the world. Like, what was that deciding factor for you?
Um, I'll just say it was honestly just inspiration, because one of my favorite scriptures talks about how that we're supposed to comfort others with the comfort that we've received.
Mm-hmm.
And it felt a little selfish to not share with other people something that finally gave me that release, something I finally exhaled, like, okay, finally, I can see something from a different perspective. And I wrote the book honestly thinking about one person, and I won't call her out because her story is her story.
Mm-hmm.
But I said, if I can write this story for that one person and
Mm-hmm.
nobody else appreciates it, then
Mm-hmm.
she will know that she was on my heart, and I wanted her to have that story. And so I felt like putting it in a book format is the most non-confrontational way of sharing something. Because again, it's a very sensitive topic. A lot of people have to be ready to talk about it. And I felt like if I put it in a book for this one person, I can give her the book and then she can read it when she's ready. And
Yeah.
then I just figure, well, I don't know how to write a book, but I'm in Korea. I'm not working, since I'm out of the States. And I have a lot of time to do some research about how to put a book together. So yeah, all of 2019 was
Wow.
just me walking out in faith, saying, okay, I'm going to write something for this one person, but I'm also going to learn how to put it in a format so that it's accessible for other people who this might resonate with as well. And I've just been really blown away by the number of people who said, hey, yeah, I don't talk to anybody about this, but this is going to be helpful.
Oh, this is so good. You just taught me a lesson, and kind of really framed it well for me that I want everybody to hear, that there comes a point in your life when you are, we all have struggles. All of us have different types of struggles at different levels. There's no use and need in comparing people's struggles. Everyone is different, but we all have them. And there comes a point in our lives, if we allow the growth and the development to take place, that we're learning lessons from, and we're becoming aware of, maybe sometimes why things have happened, but even if not why they have happened, what they have taught us as a result of them happening. And there can be this point, this marker, this benchmark, if we allow it, that we say, I have to help somebody with what I'm learning. Like my lessons have spilled over. They have begun to overflow to the point where I have to share with someone else. And I love that it started with someone you knew personally, and then you decided, I'm not just going to have a conversation with that person. I'm not just going to type up my lessons learned and put it in a letter and mail it to them. I am going to put it out to be a blessing to so many more people, because it takes a big inhale and exhale to make that type of decision. But the fact that you did it, and you got to that benchmark where you said, I've learned some lessons as a result of what I have experienced on this infertility journey, and I want to share it with somebody else. So I would ask you all again, so that we can help each other on this journey. Remember, this is interactive and not just us talking to you. If you wouldn't mind putting in the chat how you have learned to overcome or deal with your challenges, so that we can share and maybe learn from each other, even while you're in the midst of them. The last question I want to ask you, Erica, because we could go on, and I'm just going to have to invite you back again at some point, honestly. But you mentioned it again. So you're in Seoul, and I would love for you to speak to, sort of, I know that because of the military, you end up traveling. But when you decided, now that we're where we are, I want to do more traveling, and I don't have a whole lot of disposable income. Could you talk to us about, A, what travel has done for you, and B, what kinds of tips would you give those of us who don't have a lot of a disposable income but do want to travel?
Yeah. And I'll be very upfront. Like I said, I'm not working, so we're on a one income right now. So travel had to be very frugal and very considerate. But yeah, being in Korea gave us the opportunity. Like I said, last year was our 10-year anniversary. So it was opportunity of a lifetime to go to the Maldives, because we could never afford that type of trip from the States. But since we were already in Asia, that saved a big portion of it. So traveling to the Maldives for our anniversary was the first time that we did international travel that wasn't affiliated with the military. And so once I got my, kind of toe in the water, I'm like, okay, I think I can do this. So once we got back to Korea is when I started doing some research about solo travel. And one of the things that I picked up about the experience from the Maldives was that we spent a lot of time on the beach. And although that was wonderful, I never really got to interact with the culture. I never really got to learn a lot about the culture. And my undergrad degree is in sociology. So I'm always a huge fan of learning about different peoples, different backgrounds, different cultures. So I knew that my next trip and probably every trip afterwards wanted to focus on the culture of wherever I was going. So that kind of made it a little bit easier too, because I wasn't necessarily going to the tourist hotspots. I was finding, what's some little rinky dink town, somewhere that's tourist friendly, but would give me the opportunity
Mhm.
to interact with people from that area to just to learn more about just about people. So I joined a lot of different, online travel groups. TripAdvisor is like my number one go-to. I research everything on TripAdvisor just to give me kind of a overview of different places that I have an idea of going, and then they are good at recommending other places. So my very first solo trip was to Vietnam. I learned that Vietnam was, because it's in Southeast Asia, the US dollar tends to go a little bit further than, other countries. So I could go there affordably and I could have a pretty good trip for not a lot of money. But it also gave me the opportunity to go to a very small rural village and get to know the indigenous population there. So you have, I kind of compare it to the U.S. where you have, your typical American, but then you have indigenous Native Americans. So my trip to Vietnam was the equivalent of visiting the indigenous population there and spending time and getting to know, what were their challenges, what were the impacts to their community because of the war in Vietnam. And it was just so enlightening, and it broadened my perspective, as this westernized American, Black female. Their life couldn't be more different than mine. So it was an opportunity to sit down and get to know someone and recognize that even though on the surface we look so different, underneath it all, we all want the same things. We're all striving for the same things. We're all struggling with the same things. They just manifest themselves very differently depending on where you are from in the world. So um, I would say, moving forward, my big travel tips are TripAdvisor, do your research, find out these little hole in the walls that you wouldn't ever think to go to. Google Flights was amazing because you can just kind of see where in the world you can travel from a certain destination, and it'll give you the flexibility of looking at different dates, different price ranges, and just be open to doing what other people aren't doing. So I wasn't in a very tourist heavy area, but I was in a tourist friendly area. And I think
Yeah.
that made a big difference.
Thank you for those tips. I've put them in the chat, and I couldn't allow you, who has learned so many travel lessons, to leave this without sharing some of them with us. And I think it does honestly go hand in hand with the conversation, because we have to decide, even in this day and time, when, as not just in our cities and our states, but in our country and in our world, we're dealing with so much that would scare us, paralyze us, stagnate us to the point where we say we are never, ever, ever going anywhere and traveling anywhere. That we would step outside of our comfort zones. And of course, once everything settles down and once borders open back up and all those things, that we would take a step and venture outside of our comfort zones, because outside of our comfort zones are those new and wonderful experiences that we would never know anything about within our own bubbles. And so I really appreciate you sharing that. And it seems as though you writing the book about your experiences had put you outside of your comfort zone. But like you said, you spent time doing the research, you spent all year just really processing how to get it out of you. And I would encourage those of us who feel like we are bubbling over, we have lessons learned in our lives that we know someone else needs to hear, that we would find our ways, whether it is through social media, which is free, whether it is blogging, which is low to no cost, whether it is writing a book, whatever the method or venue is for us, that we would find a way to share. Maybe it's speaking for some of you, but find a way to share our lessons learned. I would also add to that that there are ways in which I know for you, Erica, you even took up our facilitator training, and you are a certified facilitator. So you can go in and help others process their situations and their experiences in group dynamics because of the training that you've received and the experiences that you've had. And so it doesn't have to be a large group from a large stage, but to gather just a group of folks together to share and pour into each other is fruitful too. That's kind of why we exist as real women. And so I'm going to ask that you all would continue to share. There are a couple of questions in the chat for you now, how you are overcoming your own areas of feeling fruitless and unproductive, whether it's literal infertility or figurative for you, as well as your travel tips, if you have any, for those of us who are doing it on a budget. I would ask you, as we're closing, Erica, thank you so much for sharing this with us.
Thank you.
I know nolessblessed.com is where you can go to get information about you and the book. Is there anything else, that any resources, any services or tools, any work that you do that you'd like for us to know about?
Not formally. I would just say that it it really felt isolating, going through this journey of where I am in infertility. And I want to be very clear, I'm not a parent, so I'm still in the middle of it. But right now we've taken a break and decided that that's not what we want to focus on right now. We want to focus on healing and restoration.
Mm.
So I would say that if anybody feels like they need somebody to connect with, they can always website, through social media. I'm very much available. And I just want to share, I guess my last little nugget of wisdom is, don't be afraid of uncomfortable places, because that's where the growth occurs. You cannot grow in a place of comfort. So when things feel uncomfortable and, just like they're not being fruitful, then there's a lesson in there somewhere. You just have to be willing to open yourself up to find it.
Mm-hmm. You just said so much. This was so good. This was so good. I just want to lift up the fact that you have made yourself available through your social media platforms and through the website to personally help and walk folks through this, because someone is listening or is going to listen to this. And whether you catch it at the end or at the beginning or somewhere in the middle, you need to know that you are not alone, that there is someone like Erica who has put her story out there. She is not on what other people would consider the other side of this issue. She is not yet a parent, but she has gone through the journey of infertility to the point where she has learned so many lessons and has garnered a level of peace in her life, that she is focusing on healing and restoration in her life and in their marriage, so that is, infertility is not the primary focus. And in addition to that, to be able to help you navigate those waters if you are still in that situation. We know that there are folks who are able to share, who have come out on the other side, with child, either, out from their womb or adopting. But this is a very important phase to talk about, and a season and a lifespan, a journey to talk about, because for some, it doesn't happen for a while, or it doesn't happen at all. Now what? And Erica has given us that now what. This has been so helpful. You've gotten some thank yous in the chat. I really hope you go back and listen to those, and read those, so that you might even get encouraged by those. And I'm hoping that some folks reach out to you, because I know they're there, and I'm hopeful that this recording finds them where they are, so they know you're available to them. Thank you so much for this time.
I know we could go on forever.
I'm telling you, I'm going to invite you back. So in a few weeks, a couple of months, something like that, we'll be back and we'll be able to finish some of the other questions I had for you or something. I am just so grateful for you all being here with us. We went a little over time, but it was worth it to cover all of these things that Erica helped us with. In addition, we want you to go to realwomenrock.org. I will end as I began because we have virtual sister circles for you this month. Normally, our virtual sister circles are only for our members, our all access members, and we still have a closed virtual sister circle dedicated to them because that is the level of community that we've built with them. If you'd like more information about our all access membership, go to realwomenrock.org and go to our work with us tab. But if you would like to engage with us in sisterhood, in connection, in community, and growing personally this month without physically leaving your house, then you can connect with us virtually. We have 2 opportunities, one this Saturday and one next Saturday. So no matter where you live in the world, Eastern Standard Time are the times that are provided. Please join us. You can go to realwomenrock.org or any of our social media platforms to find out more information. We will be back here on Wednesday nights. We've changed our night. I'll share more about that in the coming weeks. But Wednesday nights at 8 p.m. We'll see you next Wednesday. Thank you again, Erica.
Thank you.
All right. Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye-bye, y'all.